What is up, guys? This is Cody on the Real Sports Talk, bringing you the pre-race video for the Sprint Cup race at Michigan. And before I get into that, I'm just going to kind of recap the nationwide race. Joey Logano, this guy's on a roll. As I said, he's got a new swagger this season, and he's just dominating the nationwide series this year. This was his fifth win in the series just this year, and he holds off a late charge from James Buescher at the end. The thing was, though, Joey really didn't have the dominant car in this race, I wouldn't say. And this newly repaved Michigan, their first race here, it was a little bit like the top 5 or 10 could be put under a blanket pretty much. The times were very similar. All the guys were running about the same speed. It was just a matter of who got the best run off the restart, because it was very difficult to pass, especially on the inside where Buescher tried to pass at the end. And on that flatter part where the banking's a little flatter, guys just got sideways all day. You had Danica Patrick that spun out 3 times. She didn't finish well, and that third spin for her finally got her to get off the lead lap. I believe she got off the lead lap. Well, she actually got damage on that final spin, and that's the one that knocked her out of contention for a good finish in this race. But yeah, so Joey Logano comes away with the win in this one after winning the Sprint Cup race at Pocono last weekend after the Nationwide Series gets a week off. There were 7 yellows throughout this race, and 3 of them were in the final 25 laps. The final results for this race were Joey Logano, James Buescher, Kurt Busch, who was at 36th at one point in this race and was involved in a wreck on lap 1. That involved Danica Patrick. He had front-end damage from that wreck. Cole Witt, the first driver that gets points out of this race because he's a Nationwide Series regular, finishes in 4th. That's finally a good finish for that team, who's been running decent for a portion of the year. Austin Dillon, last year's Truck Series champion, comes in 5th. Sam Hornish Jr. in 6th. Michael McDowell in the 20 car this week for Joe Gibbs Racing comes in 7th. Paul Menard, who led some laps, comes in 8th. Brian Scott, another decent finish after his finish 2 weeks ago. That was decent for that team. They could be putting something together here to mount a late points charge to get a decent points finish by the end of the season. And Elliott Sadler, who is our points leader now, comes in 11th. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a lot of guys were saying that, a lot of the analysts, I should say, were saying that off week was just what he needed after those couple of issues he had in the 2 previous races before the break. But he comes out this week and he just has a terrible race, to say the least, and he finishes in 25th. Not a good finish for him. He wasn't in contention at all, really, today. So, as I said, Elliott Sadler leads the points. Ricky Stenhouse drops to 3rd in the point standings. With that 5th place finish, Austin Dillon gets within 8 points of points leader Elliott Sadler. So he's doing pretty well for a rookie, and we could expect to see him probably in some cup races in the near future. He's been running really great. His grandfather, Richard Childress, is just backing him really well, and he looks to be a good talent for the future of the sport, and we could be seeing a lot of him in the future. Sam Hornish Jr. is now in 4th position. Cole Witt in 5th position now in the point standings. He's up a spot, and he is 81 points behind the leader, as is Justin Allgaier, who drops back a spot to 6th in the points. Now, moving on to this Cup Series race at Michigan. It's very hot in Michigan, combined with the new racetrack, newly repaved racetrack. These really high temperatures are really causing some issues. We're causing some issues in practice, and those are the tire issues that are happening there. There's blistering of the left side tires, and that can ultimately lead to blowouts on long runs. And when you're getting to the speeds these guys are on this new pavement, which is 11 miles an hour more, that could be dangerous. A blowout, one of the drivers said they won't actually know if it's too fast or not until they actually a wreck happens or someone hits the wall, because they don't really know what's going to happen with this extra 11 miles an hour that they're having at the end of the straightaways. They're getting up to 218 on the straightaways, which is pretty intense. They expect that to slow down, though, as they get on the race day and into the race, and as the race speed goes along, they expect those speeds to cut down a little bit. But when they're running those qualifying laps, they are reaching 218 miles an hour at the end of the front stretch, and that is in qualifying trim, and that is just huge speed difference at 11 miles an hour. And that really stresses the equipment, which is built to only go like 205 and 208 like they were going last year at the end of the straightaways. That's stressing that equipment out, and they're going a little harder than they ever had before with this equipment. So that could stress out the equipment over the course of the long day of racing. Nothing really happened with the cars in the practices that they did, but obviously they didn't run all those consecutive miles at that speed that they would during the race. So we'll have to see. It's supposed to be very hot on race day. I believe it's supposed to be in the 90s in Michigan, so that's going to put even more stress on those tires and on these parts of these engines and on the drivers on this newly repaved racetrack. Goodyear did end up they did end up changing the left side tires though for the race. The tires they qualified on were the ones that they ended up practicing with throughout the week, but they're going to change those tires. They let them have a practice session today. That's probably just wrapping up. And on those new tires, they let them have a practice session. So we're going to have to see if there are issues still on race day with that blistering, if that issue's fixed, or if it goes over to the right side tires over the course of the long run. And the blowouts are something we definitely have to look out for as we approach this race and at these high speeds. I believe 19 drivers broke the record for times once again this week in practice, and Marcus Ambrose, who took the pole, also broke the record. And Kevin Harvick will be alongside him on the front row. Some notables from qualifying: Carl Edwards was not able to complete a lap because of engine issues, and he will start at the back of the pack. And Jeff Gordon qualifies in 28th after his qualifying run. Something we have to look out for. It was really, throughout the practice sessions, there was only a single groove. You have to expect that to rubber in as the race goes on, and the Nationwide Series helps widen out the track and the groove with that as well. And we'll have to look forward to that, the track expanding even more than it did in the Nationwide Series race during the Cup race tomorrow. And as we saw in the Cup race, that lower, flatter banked part of the track is difficult to pass on, and we'll have to see if that high line comes in too, like the very high line. Most drivers are running about the middle of the track in the Nationwide Series race, and that seems to be the preferred line right now. But as more rubber gets down on the track, more races are completed on this track, the more we're going to see the track widening out and more grooves coming into play. And but that groove has got to be the groove that's got to rubber in if guys are going to make passes for the win. And as I said, look forward to seeing very similar speeds, identical speeds in these drivers, and not a lot of passing to happen. We didn't see a lot of it unless it's off restarts. Off restarts is going to be when most of the action is going to happen on this track, and we'll really see, if this track rubbers in, and we'll see some good racing. We'll see some, as we saw in the Nationwide Series race, great action off of restarts, 3 and 4 wide racing, guys diving to the inside of other guys. It's all about the jump on that restart, because if there's not differences in speed, you got to be able to take advantage of them when they're all bunched up like that. Well, my pick for this race, I think you really have to look forward to Dale Jr., who is just having a phenomenal season, running very consistent, very well, had some cars that could win some races, and he just hasn't yet this season. But I think this is actually the racetrack where he last won at in a points-paying race. This weekend of 2008 was when he last won at Michigan, and that was his last victory at all. So he'll have to try to break that streak, and I think he'll actually do it here at Michigan. He ran very well in the newly repaved Pocono. He did decent in practice. His starting position isn't ideal, but it's workable, and I think he can come away with the checkered flag here in Michigan. For all your sporting needs, go ahead and subscribe to The Real Sports Talk. We got some great sports coverage for you. We're covering the NBA playoffs right now. When the NFL season comes around, we'll cover that and all that 32-team stuff. And also, we got wrestling coverage right now, and obviously we're keeping you up to date with the NASCAR. So subscribe to The Real Sports Talk. Thanks for checking it out.